Welcome to Stop Wasting Your Wine, a wine review podcast where we waste our wine so you don't have to. On this episode, we review
a red wine from Los Angeles with guest host Adam Wolf.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Aaron here, joined once again by two of my best friends in the world, Colin and Joel, and a new friend, Adam Wolf from LA. Adam, welcome to the show.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm looking forward to a lot of fun here.
Yeah, we are super excited to have you. I'm going to give a little intro right now. Adam is joining us from LA. Adam is deeply involved in the wine industry out in LA. He works in a couple tasting rooms from Byron Blatty Wines and AJ Vineyard, as well as working on the sales side as a brand ambassador from Atrium Wine Brokers, and holds his WSET level 3. So that makes him three times smarter than me.
That's a whole W set more than Colin has.
It is. It is.
He gets to go to
real
the
wine
next
expert
floor
on the
of
show.
the WSET office. You're not allowed in those rooms. And then, like super fun notes, when not doing wine, Adam is a professional hornist who's played with everyone from The Who to Miley Cyrus, I believe I read on your bio, and teaches horn at the University of Redlands. Welcome to the show, Adam. That is super cool.
Yeah, thanks guys for having me. It's kind of funny, depending on what job I'm at. It's like I do wine on the side, or if I'm at a wine job, I do music on the side.
Nice.
and the real answer is like, yeah, like my career, my like day job is I'm a professional hornist, but it's freelance. So with the wine stuff, you know, so much of the wine industry is also kind of very flexible. Like no one in the music world or in the wine world seems to like to wake up early. And so it makes it really easy and flexible. And luckily at the tasting rooms and Atrium, like they're super cool. And if I like text them, I'm like, hey, I got called for a recording session tomorrow. I'm supposed to be at the tasting room. They're like, oh, no, we'll work it out. Have a good session. And
That's
it's like,
awesome.
you know, if it wasn't for their flexibility, like I would not be able to have like the 4 jobs. I'd have to pick 1 or 2. So
yeah, well,
like a sane person.
It's amazing. Well, like a sane person. I'm just thinking in my head, like those are 2 of the coolest things to be between. It's usually like, oh, I'm an accountant and I make miniature models of skyscrapers on the side and sell them on Etsy. You're like, no, I have these 2 really awesome careers and I'm somewhere between the 2 at all times. That's so cool.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, no, it's really cool. It's really rewarding, and I know we'll talk about it probably more later, or maybe now. I don't really know what the time will be, but there's just so much overlap between the 2, and it makes it a lot easier because, like you said, like with like accounting and like, you know, you guys have seen now through the podcast, but also from before, like a lot of people in wine like had a regular job and then made a lot of money and then were able to afford to go into wine. Sure. And that's not weird. You know, when you meet like a winemaker, like, oh yeah, I used to be a doctor or whatever. And, but with music, like it doesn't pay enough and wine doesn't pay enough. So between the 2, it works out great.
But with your powers combined.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, tell us a little bit about that too, Adam. So kind of, you know, a little bit of, you know, how on that path of music and wine, how did you find yourself into wine and kind of what led you here to be between these 2 really cool things? How did you get here?
Well, it was easy. You sent a link, and no.
Oh, nice.
Yes. But
you're gonna get a lot of that. I have 2 small kids, so I have the dad jokes. Like I only had the kids for that reason. So
I'm here for it. Fantastic.
We've got 5 between us, so we are big dad joke guys. So
okay, well we're in a good place.
Totally.
So I mean, music. I grew up with it. My dad was a band director, and I always wanted to do that as a job. Like I think I went from like, you know, when I was like 11, I was like, I want to be a baseball player, and then it basically transitioned right into professional hornist. So it was pretty early on. Yeah, it was a total easy progression. Yeah. Well, I just thought there was too much glory in baseball. You know, I needed less. But
a little more challenge.
Yeah, I mean, come on, anyone can be rich and famous. But so I did that for a long time, and I've been doing that for a long time. But I really truly hated wine until my wife, and we'd go out to date. Now wife at the time when we started dating, she's like she couldn't understand how I couldn't like wine. And so every time we go out to dinner, she'd just like kind of push her glass across the table, like, hey, just try it. And at first I was like, no, dumpster water, like not doing it. And eventually, like, I went wine tasting for a wedding that was happening in Temecula. One of my friends was getting married, and I was in the bridal party. And so we went wine tasting to kill time on the day of before everyone was ready. And I tried a Petite Syrah from Leoness Cellars out there. And I was like, hey, this is actually good. I like this. And then I tried the Syrah. I'm like, oh, this is good. And it like, I texted my wife. I'm like, hey, I think I like these wines. And she's just like, yes, like it's finally happening. And then we went through some dark ages where I was like, yeah, I like wine now. And I was just bringing home just like not top shelf grocery wine.
Sure.
Yeah, we've all been there.
Yeah.
Part of the journey, right?
Yeah.
Totally.
Part of the journey.
Totally. And like, I'd bring home like, I haven't tried them since, so maybe they're still good, but I'd bring home like, a Apothic or something like, oh, like I bet this is gonna be great. And I'd be like, oh, this is great. My wife would be like, yeah, it's good. But like, she's like playing nice. She's like, I'm not gonna rock this boat.
I had a big Apothic phase too, by the way. So that's, you're speaking my language.
Cool labels,
I brought layer
good
cake
price.
on the show.
Oh,
You did.
it'd be weirder if Colin did though. Like that would be like, okay,
sure.
so
I
is
was
everything
so
okay at home?
excited.
So
I
much
was
fun.
like, guys, I get we bring this to dinner, and these two guys just shit on it for 30 minutes.
Yeah,
It's
but
terrible wine.
yeah, it's not what you think. It's the taste. But yeah. But so then we went back to like up for a proper wine tasting trip, just like a 2-day trip to like Temecula, and then we went to Carmel, and we started like going to like the regions got better, and then for our honeymoon we went to Napa, and it was like one particular winery up there. Young Inglewood is the name of them, and they were like gave us this like incredible experience. And I don't know when the last time any of you were at Napa, but like it's very much like since COVID, like you have to have reservations, all this stuff. And we were like trying to make reservations on the drive up.
Oh wow.
Yeah, well, we part of the musician life. Like I had a bunch of work, and she had a bunch of work Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then Sunday night we did our rehearsal dinner, and then got married on a Monday. Drove to Napa. Like we just didn't have time, and at that point we already had our daughter. So it was like, but Young Inglewood was like, yeah, we'll see you tomorrow. That's cool.
Nice.
And they gave us like a 3-hour tour and tasting. And it was a great experience. And like on the drive home from that, I was like, I'm looking up, all right, I'm buying a wine fridge. I'm looking up everything I can, subscribe to some TV streaming service, like go through the whole thing. And that led to like, what's W set? And then did 2 and then did 3. And it's like, and it's been, the silver lining is I bring home better wine. The downside is I bring home a lot more of it. And so it's a double-edged sword.
For
So
sure.
I converted my closet into a wine pantry, and now I just have all of these bottles of wine because that's a good investment.
It's crazy how it snowballs like that too. You start off, dipping your toe, and next thing you know, you're shoulders deep in wine that you had no expectation of ever buying before, and it's like, how did I get here? But it's worth it.
I think we've all named Napa too as like the jumping off point. Like we're all like liked wine, tried wine, and then like had a trip to Napa, and then you're like, oh, like I can go way deeper in the pool here.
Totally. And it's like, it's less cool nowadays to be like, oh, like my favorite wines are Napa cabs. It's like, it's less posh. But then when you have one and like a really good one, you're like, right, that's why.
Yeah, for
like
sure.
it's every time.
Yep.
Sure.
Yeah. I don't know about if you guys did this, but I went through the phase of where like I was bringing home like, those $8 to $10 to $12 bottles of wine, and then got really into wine. And then like all the wines I brought home were like $40 or $50. Yeah. And then I finally have centered down to like, no, they're like 20 to 30 ish of like, I've, like I went too far in both directions, and then finally
sure.
So I feel like that's common, but it didn't feel common at the time.
You're so right. I don't know if it's just because there's so many options to where you almost think like if you look at the whole spectrum, like you think, oh, it must be somewhere in the middle, like that's the sweet spot. But then I think you kind of realize that no, it's a little. I think the sweet spot is a little closer to the more approachable prices. Shockingly,
I agree. Yeah,
and you still I think we're even kind of starting a little bit to go into little higher pricing points, but then go back to kind of like our safe space and all that good stuff. But it's interesting how you kind of dial in like, oh yeah, this is where I think I'm going to live for now, and you can explore so much even in that little sect of the price range.
Totally.
I think the ultimate goal of our show is kind of help people skip that second step. Like there's a lot of folks who are like, I'm buying wine, it's like way too cheap. And then you figure out that like, oh, that wine's actually not good. And so people are like, okay, now I have to spend 50, 60, 70, $80 on a bottle of wine if I want to have an actual good bottle of wine, which of course exist and are great. But we're trying to help people jump to the other part of being like, you just need to know what to look for in a good wine. And then every time I go to Total Wine, I'm still going to grab my $15 Côte d'Aron from Igugal because I know that's a good wine and I can stock up on it and I can keep that.
Yeah, you can buy the case and still do anything else you want with that day instead of question your life choices.
Right. That's right. Do that. It wasn't a bad choice and move on. And that's fine.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think it's great what you guys are doing of like, if this podcast has existed when I was doing that, I probably would have saved it because that $5 to $10 range, the jump from the 5 to 10 to the 10 to 20 is like huge. Whereas the 20 to 30 is also big, but then after that, as you guys know, it's like gets smaller and smaller. And like, I think the most expensive one I've had is like $1,000 bottle. And I'm like, it is just as good as like the $150 bottle Napa Cab I got on my honeymoon.
Yeah,
right.
Sure.
Is it
100%.
10 times better than a $100 bottle of wine?
Yeah, not when you play French horn and do wine. It's not.
Right.
Well, Aaron kind of touched on this, but I think one of the big things that we do on this show is try to make wine more approachable in general. And you, Aaron, said in the intro you work in some tasting rooms, so you're kind of on the front line of that. You're talking to people as they're actually buying wine. So, how have you kind of shaped the way you talk about wine in a way that it really connects with people and isn't intimidating, to get them to try something that maybe they haven't tried before?
For sure. Well, when I was coming out of my like WSET 3, it was basically right after that I started working in the tasting room stuff. And I found that like that initial hit of working in there, it was like I was trying to like over explain with training. And like I'd be like, oh, do you smell this? Do you smell this? Do you smell this? Like, oh, and that's because of this. And like I found that the longer I spend time in front of like just random people drinking wine, that my like descriptions and storytelling get so much more vague and weird. And but in like a really good way, like
sure.
like instead of like saying like I'll swirl wine instead of being like, yeah, it's like earthy, it's got forest floor, dark fruits, maybe bruised fruits, it's shifted to like, like when you're camping and like it's a little dewy and you're gonna go for a walk in the morning, but like the way that smells is just like feels like you're really like out in nature and you're away from the city. That's what I smell like, which is like
I love that.
I knew exactly
almost
what
nonsense.
that smell is too.
Almost nonsense, but it paints
But
a
not
different
quite.
type of story. Yeah, exactly. but they still get it. But that's relatable. Like they don't. If I say like, oh, like how when you have like bruised plums, it's like, no, I put them back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, that's right.
Exactly.
Like, what are you talking
Aaron
about?
hasn't tried most fruit, so trying to describe what fruit tastes like to him is
Don't
almost
tell me
should
it tastes like blackberries. I don't even know what that is. Like
You should check it out. Blackberries are pretty cool.
They are. They're
They're
awesome.
very just like mainstream fruit right now. You don't have to
Honestly,
go
it's
to,
super
like,
hot
an
right now,
exotic
yeah.
I'm
fruit
not
place.
trying new
Yeah.
fruit at the same
Yeah, if you
time.
can get in early on blackberry, I think that would be the good thing to do. Yeah.
So hot right now.
but like that's the thing with like the WSET stuff of like, and they do it with the court stuff too. CMS stuff is like, there's a lot of talk of like things that we don't have here. Like, you'll hear gooseberries come up, or you'll hear blackcurrant come up, or red currant. And like, if I tried my ass off to find red currant, which I have, I can't find it.
Yeah. I look for gooseberries every time I go anywhere that might have a gooseberry. I've yet to find one.
I found so many more geese before finding a gooseberry. Like,
That's right.
so
No geese,
it's
no berries.
so like I think once you get in front of like actual consumers, because like what we are trying to sell wines and like get club signups or whatever. Like that's not a part of it. But for me, like, and I think this is the benefit of having like if I quit all of the wine jobs, I would be fine because that's what I was doing a couple years ago. Like, and so like the stakes are a little lower in that like I'm really interested in making a connection, and like I guess the way like I didn't have the warmest introduction to wine from like wine professionals, like nothing bad, just like I'm like interested in making an experience, and making a connection, and they were kind of just like doing their job. And I want to kind of like make that thing happen for them that happened for me, except for what the reason it happened for me is my wife kept forcing me to have wine until I liked it. And I remind her every time I bring home expensive wine, like, just remember, I was perfectly happy with my Coke Zero.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, that's right. It's your fault.
You did this to our buddy.
Yeah. But no, it's about, like, for me, like, getting more relatable to the people. And the, most of the time I spend in the tasting room is at Blatty, because they are 15 minutes from my house.
Sure.
So,
Gotcha.
so I spend there, and it's premium wine. It's premium. It's priced premium, and it's good. But like, it's also a kind of a upper middle class to high upper class neighborhood. So that's not as daunting to them. It does limit things, I'm sure, sometimes for certain people. But at that point, you're kind of like, they're here. Let's just make a great experience for them.
So that's a really excellent kind of segue into the next question I was going to have. Like, obviously, when a lot of people think about California wine, they think about Napa. You walk around Napa and the surrounding towns, there's tasting rooms left and right. And when I think about tasting rooms in LA, I would imagine that they're tasting rooms for Napa, wineries, and this is like where they're pushing their product to. But that's not the case, especially with Blatty's, right? So talk to us about, like, the wine scene in LA County. What is that like?
Sure. Yeah. Like, first of all, like, I think the wine scene in general in LA doesn't get as much love as it deserves, because there's so many wine lovers here. Like, there's, in my neighborhood alone where I live, if I could walk to probably like 6 or 7 wine shops and in 20 minutes or so, and it wouldn't be, and I could get anything from Apothic to DRC in a 20 to 25 minute walk.
That's crazy.
That's
yeah, and it's really weird, and that's a great thing, and we have a bunch of great wine bars. But as far as the wine making thing, like, it's still kind of like not super public even in LA, because we have access as a major city to everything. Yeah. So like, if you go anywhere, you can, like, I feel like I haven't had any, but like, apparently Idaho's making really good wine in certain areas. And
Really?
Yeah, and I bet you if you go to some of the nicer restaurants in Idaho, I bet you there's some Idaho wine on those lists.
Sure.
Because kind of support the home team, so to speak. Maybe I'm wrong, but I know in New York they're really good about supporting New York winemakers for the most part. But like in LA, you don't see a lot of LA made wine on wine lists, which is too bad. But there's a lot of great wine happening here, because like, LA is the original wine region of California, like pre-prohibition. Like, this is where it was. Like, when you drive in LA, you'll see exit on Vineland, exit on Vine, exit, like all these little clues, because like, even just like Union Station, which is like a huge, like, it's a train station, but it's also like a landmark and like tourist spot that used to be all vineyard until they built Union Station. And
I had no idea that was
the
case.
It doesn't, you would never know it.
Yeah,
Because just like in Napa, where a lot of people are getting priced out because land is expensive, they're getting priced out because someone else wants to make wine on that expensive land. Whereas in LA, after prohibition, like, land prices were rising, or even before it, but land prices were rising, and like, no one could justify using that premium land for agriculture when there was so much agriculture outside of LA.
Sure.
So it just kind of worked its way out, but there's still probably like 10 or 11 wineries that make exclusively or almost exclusively Los Angeles grapes. But the difference is they source them, so like from around the outskirts of LA County. So if LA County was like a dartboard and the bullseye and maybe the circle around it were LA, downtown LA, like, maybe on the outskirts of that dartboard there are vineyards, just like there are there are orchards, there are all kinds of stuff. So that's where we find a lot of the vineyards. And with the Blatty wine that we're going to talk about in a little bit, like, he sources all of his fruit, but almost all of it from LA County, with just a couple of small exceptions. But this wine today is all LA County Tannat. Oh, I spoiled it.
Cool.
Sorry.
That's amazing.
No,
that's great.
No, that's okay.
That's awesome.
People will know by the title. That's
probably true.
Yes. Gosh, that's so cool, and totally changes, my perspective on. I'm always thinking about doing a trip to, Sonoma or Napa, and now just completely makes me want to go explore LA and really actually experience that wine scene that I think we're all learning a little bit is probably a little bit more happening than we even knew. So I think that's super cool. I'd want to ask one more question. I kind of want to go back. We were talking about, your life between music and wine. And we just had a guest a couple of weeks ago, Dr. Coleman, and his whole thing is writing about kind of the through lines of wine and culture and race, specifically in Spain. And in your bio, you talk about kind of the through lines and the relationship of wine and music. So, I know we kind of talked about your life in between the two, but can you just kind of expand on, what you think, the relationship is there and how the two kind of, are related or maybe influence each other?
Yeah, sure. So music and wine are interesting, and a lot of people push back on wine being an art form. I just don't understand how you could argue that it's not an art form. I just think it fits into more of the art form, kind of like architecture, where it's functional, but it's also like artistically expressive, and is kind of, I think, in that similar way where like there are songs and pieces of music that are objectively, indefensibly brilliant. That can also be hated by many. And because it just doesn't fit your taste, and I think that, and I experienced that because like with my job, like so much of what I do is just work for hire. And while I love a lot of that stuff that I get to do, very little of it is like tailor made to my taste. Because it doesn't have to be. That's not my job. And my job is to like, serve a project or a composer or a film or whatever it is. And I think wine is kind of that in a way where it's an expression of a land and like, a terroir if you want to think of it. But I also just think like a landscape that you can picture and you can see how that evolves into the barrel, into the bottle, and then into your glass. And by the time you're pouring it for a person, they don't have to like it, but it can still be a structurally and like deliciously sound wine and not fit everyone's taste. But also there's like that, both of them have kind of that incredibly free spirit nature while also being crazy disciplined and structured. I think that's one of the things that attracted me so much to the wine is just like, I just felt it's so relatable. And that's what actually made like the WSET exams fun for me. Like it was a little stressful, but not really, because like for how like orchestral auditions work, it's kind of weird where like they'll, let's say like San Francisco Symphony has a first horn audition coming up. Like 250 people might apply, 100 resumes might get accepted, maybe that high, it's probably less, but maybe 100. They'll show up, everyone will get 5 minutes to state their case by playing, and then after a day of that, they'll pick a winner. And if you told someone, you're like, hey, I got a job interview, just so you know, you're one of 250 applicants. The math odds are terrible. Like I'm not a math guy, but they seem bad. And
how many other jobs are asking you to perform live? Usually you just pitch yourself, but you're actually pitching your skills in front of other people. That's terrifying. Yeah,
and with no really way to like rebuttal. Like you can't be like, if you play bad, if you miss a note, you can't be like, hey, can I do that again? Like you can ask for that like maybe one time, but you can't be like, oh, sorry, like my hand slipped. Like no, like you can ask to do it again, but they can also say no. Because it's usually behind a screen where they can't see you to avoid preference hires. So it's literally like, all right, here's coming candidate number 10. You walk out, you play for 5 minutes, maybe, unless they cut you off early and tell you no more. Then you go, and then someone comes and tells you if you did good.
Wow. Yikes.
And whereas WSET, like they were like, everyone was a little stressed, because one of the beautiful things of that is like everyone's kind of coming from wherever they're coming from, and very rarely are they coming from where I am. And so they're like, oh, well, I'm stressed about this exam. Like, I'm like, I mean, I guess, but like,
because I just need to drink this wine. I just have to play for 5 minutes behind a sheet.
Yeah, exactly. And also, everyone can win.
Yeah.
That's right. There's no limited space. I remember for my three, the two wines we did blind were just such jerk moves. I loved it. Like, because we had our tasting group and we tried wines all the time, every week, try 8 wines between the 4 of us. And what we got on our exam was a, botryticized ferment and then a barefoot Pinot Noir.
Oh,
Whoa.
oh no.
And it was like cool. And like,
That's
and we
crazy.
didn't really blind either of those types of wines, like, which is our bad, but also like, oh, I didn't think we'd go like sweet wine.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
so
for sure.
but
Yeah.
I mean, luckily everyone in my tasting room passed, but like we came out, we're like, what the, like, are you kidding me?
Yeah,
Like,
crazy.
but you know, but also like with that stuff, it was like you have to get it right enough. And with the auditions, it's like, no, you kind of have to be perfect or very close to, otherwise it's just not going to happen because only one person gets it. So, so I found that like super enjoyable, like bringing those audition prep skills to the WSET stuff. So like there was a lot of overlap, I felt like, between both the process and the craft.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. 'Cause it's nice to hear about the overlap. Like two, I think a lot of people don't often think about obviously people think about like the knowledge of wine, but like the idea of like getting certified and taking the test and sitting down and having to do the blind tastings, it's just really difficult, but very cool. All right, we just quizzed you a ton. We have a great episode ahead of us. We're gonna jump into this wine. We're gonna try it out. We're gonna give it a smell. We're gonna give it a taste. We're gonna get into a rating. And thank you so much for being vulnerable with that. Like, you're obviously bringing this in to us. For the listener at home that might be new, we have a different rating system than any other wine organization
What
out
would
there.
you call us? But yeah, I was going to say, is he going to say podcast, review
than any other? We are
Yeah.
critique in a very different way.
You're a wine
we don't
critic
like
if it gets you a
numbers.
discount, and
Yeah.
otherwise,
That's right.
We don't like numbers on the show because we think wine is about the experience. Wine is about who you want to share it with or where you want to drink it. So in this show, obviously, if the wine's no good, it's a drain wine. You don't want to share it with anyone except for the hole at the bottom of your sink. We have backup wines. Those are the wines that, if we absolutely need to, break glass for emergency, it's fine, but you're probably not going to choose to drink it. Casual drinkers are the wines that might not be the best wines in the world, but you like them and it's fine. You drink it around the house. It's a good bottle that you grab when you just want to, when you're vacuuming or whatever. Must share wines are well, you don't just walk around with a glass of wine while you're vacuuming.
I haven't typically, but now I'm thinking about it.
Well, I gotta say, I'm gonna jump in and be like, I recommend it.
Yeah, actually.
It only makes the experience that much better. A must-share wine is the wines that we think are just so good that you're going to want to bring around your friends, family, bring them out to dinner, bring them to a party. And then our wine fridge wines are our personal favorites. They don't have to be the most expensive wines. They don't have to be the fanciest wines, but they are the wines that we personally love the most. We each get 3, and if we ever find a new one, we have to kick one out of our fridge to make room for it. It's very dramatic. But today, we are going to be talking about a wine that Adam was so kind to send to us. Adam, would you mind telling us about the bottle that you shared with us today?
Sure. So this is actually, and I will make sure that in case they listen, that I give full credit. So the winemakers for this are Mark Blatty and Joey Perry. The owner, the proprietors are Mark Blatty and Jenny Blatty. Technically, Jenny Blatty sent these. So I want to make sure she gets the love, Jenny. And so, but I recommend it, and I was happy to bring it onto the show because I think I love working with them. But also, one of the things that's cool about your guys' show is people are going to come in not necessarily bringing a ton of knowledge or maybe bringing a ton of knowledge, but this is a chance for them to get exposed to something that they might not have anyway. And I bet everyone listening outside of LA has not had a Los Angeles County Tannat. So this is the Tannat by Byron Blatty, which is a premium artisanal winemaker and winery in Los Angeles. And they source these particular grapes for this Tannat from the Alonso Vineyard in Agua Dulce. And yeah, I love Tannat, but I haven't had I would say a ton of them, but I like this expression quite a bit. I think it's a little bit more tame and more rich than like a typical French Tannat or even from Uruguay. But yeah, so this is the 2022 vintage and it's 100% Tannat.
Awesome. We're so excited. A couple other small notes there. This is a 15.1% ABV. And this bottle, I believe you mentioned, usually runs around $60. So if you're out in LA and want to visit them and grab a bottle, that is what you're looking at. Me being the one of the baby wine learners on the show, I have never heard of Tannat, so I'm excited to try something new. Colin, can you just give us a few things, a few pieces of information about this? What are we drinking?
Yeah, so Tannat, really what it's known for is its structure. because Tannat can have some outrageous tannins. It is a super thick skin grape, and with those thick skins comes very high tannin. It can also come with some pretty intense color, but with that you also get some pretty intense flavor extraction as well. So you're usually going to see high acid with Tannat. And it depends upon how you make it. It can range from, medium to full body. This one at 15.1% alcohol. Probably expect a little more body on this one, just with the alcohol in there. Then, when you're drinking Tannat, kind of keep these flavor notes in mind. You're going to be looking for your darker fruits, your black plum, some blueberries, some blackberry. Aaron, I know we mentioned it before. You're going to miss out on that one.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
But here's good things.
But yeah. And then you can also find some notes of some licorice, which, spoilers, wow. And then a little bit of smoke, leather, dark chocolate, coffee. And then depending upon, whether it's aged in oak, which Tannat oftentimes is, you can get some of that oak influence as well. This is one that you can age Tannat in general because of its intense structure. You can lay these down for quite some time because of the acid and the tannin. And that's just kind of what to keep in mind as we are drinking this wine this evening.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, I would hate to stand between us and this wine any longer. So let's go ahead and get our nose in our glasses and give our first impression to our listeners.
Tastes like wine.
Adam, as you brought this, I would love to give you a first crack at it.
Yeah, what I like about this wine, I've obviously had it a lot, is I really get a lot of those bright red fruits on the nose typically. And part of that is, it's 2022, so it's still pretty young. But I always go right to like raspberries, but also plums, both actually red and black plums. I get kind of both of that. And great call to allude to, Colin, on the licorice, but I also get a ton of, like, for me, it's like almost like a cinnamon and nutmeg type of baking spice. Yeah. It's not quite that, but that mixed in with the cedar that I get from it is kind of like the whole sandwich that I get out of this on the nose.
Nice. Colin, Joel, anything to add there?
Yeah, no, I like the red fruits. It is a nice mix of red and black, I think, fruits. It's pretty unique to find 100% varietal that shows both red and black. Beyond just the plum, I get a little bit of blackberry in there too, and I love the cedar call because you get just so much of that, but it's not at all overpowering. I think it really is well integrated in this wine.
And that's the only other thing that I was going to call out is just the fruit, and then the baking spices are both. I was going to say balance. I think integrated is great, but they're both just kind of like evenly there. I'm getting a little vanilla in there too, is the only other thing I would call out, but just lovely.
And the one thing I'll note is, I made sure to open this a little bit before we started recording. At this point, my bottle's been open for about an hour. And I will say when I first poured it a while ago, the alcohol was pretty heavy on the nose. But now that it's opened up and now that it's had time to air out, like that's way less of just part of the experience of smelling it. So definitely just as a note in the future, if someone's going to try this, like giving the bottle time to open up, air out, or using an aerator really helped with like dispersing the alcohol aspect, as this is a 15.1% bottle of wine.
Yeah, I'd agree with that for sure. The alcohol is definitely a punch to the face right out of the bottle, which at 15.1% is expected, but sure. Definitely it's cooled off quite a bit. No,
yeah, I've had obviously a lot of Blatty wines like right out of the cork and then 3 days old or whatever. One thing I like about pretty much all of his wines is, and they're all like around this ABV. Like he's a high ABV house. But it's especially right after the initial hit, you don't feel like you're drinking 15.1, 15.5 because it is pretty integrated, which I think is a testament to both Mark and Joey of like these wines should be very punchy. Usually you have to kind of have a couple glasses and then like get up to go to the bathroom, and that's when you find out, it's this one's 15.1. Yeah.
It's like my experience didn't actually change the ABV. Like it didn't feel 15.1, but it was.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like sometimes we'll sniff some wines and it's like my nose hairs are singed. I'm not getting that here, Yeah. And even when we first opened it, like it was a little bit more obviously, but like it's never been the thing that punched me in the face and singed my nose hairs. You know what I mean? And for 15.1, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Totally. All right, let's give it a sip, and I'm gonna let Colin or Joel jump in with your first tasting notes.
I'll jump in and take some of the low hanging stuff here before the pros dig in a little bit more. But I think a lot of what we called out. Interestingly, I think a lot more of the red fruit, I think, poking through on the sip than on the smell, but still just that same. Great. I love the influence. I think I saw it was 20 months in oak barrels.
20 months in one time used French oak. And this
Gotcha.
And they made one barrel of this, so it's just the one barrel.
Wow. I mean,
Really?
I wouldn't go to 21 or 19 because I think this is just spot on with the time there.
Which shows you really know what you're talking about, because you would know 19 or 21. Absolutely.
Just be too
Got
much
it.
or too
Got
little.
it.
This is
the-
going back to the sweet
Wait, so-
spot. This is it.
They only made one barrel of the 2022 Tannat.
Yeah, it's pretty scarce as far as it. So that's another reason I was really appreciative of Mark and Jenny to just
Yeah, thank you.
give us
Yeah,
4
that's
bottles of it.
wild. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. That's incredible.
I feel very special.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that surprised me tasting this, and I've had some other Tannats, and the tannic grip has just been like outrageous. It just feels like you're getting hit with the tannins in the face. This doesn't have that. This is actually really nicely structurally balanced. Especially, this is 2020. It's only 3 years old. I was expecting quite a bit more tannin than I'm finding, which is really a pleasant surprise.
Adam, what do you get?
I mean, I totally agree with that, and I think like more of the French Tannats I've had are like what you're talking about, like where the tannins are just bonkers. But I think the acid on this is just so nice that it balances out the tannins so well for me, because like I do feel it, and I'm sure you guys do. Like I do feel like that little grip,
Totally.
but it kind of just feels more like it's like reminding me it's there rather than like taking me away from a conversation to talk about it.
Yeah, it's a nice hug instead of a full-fisted punch to the face.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I prefer generally hugs over punches to the face. Not all the time. Everything has a time and place, but
Every now and then. Every now and then.
What about you, Aaron?
I mean, I don't have anything new or exciting to share. Normally, my fallback is structure because I don't eat foods.
Sure.
I very much appreciate the balance of this. I usually like a high tannic wine, and this is a nice balance. It's not too much. The acidity is nice. I have to say, for a 15.1% ABV and the tannins and the body and everything where it is, I don't know if crushable is the right word, but I am drinking it relatively quickly. Like, it is very enjoyable. It is going down fast, and I have to be cautious about that.
Yeah, that's like Mark's superpower / everyone else's downfall is like, I'm just going to make super delicious wine at high ABV, then everyone's going to be wondering what happened.
Yeah, it's exactly right. I'm like, this is tasty.
Sneaky.
It's going down quickly. It's sneaky. And oh no, half the bottle's gone. And I'm doing math in my head, and that's a problem.
Yeah. Well,
I think it's because nothing like intrusive or abrasive sticks out on this. Like, it's just from beginning to end, it's a really, really pleasant experience,
Aaron, as the wine noob, I will give you a fun fact about Tannat that you can pass on to your friends, which is it is the only grape that is a palindrome.
Oh, that's fun.
Oh,
That's fun and nerdy.
Oh
I
my
love that.
goodness.
Yeah. It's one of those things like, even if people don't like wine, like, I know what a palindrome is.
Yeah,
Like-
totally.
It's like,
And they look at
And
the bottle
now
like,
I
you're
have a fun
totally
fact.
right.
I can.
Yeah. I do that at the tasting. They're like, you're right. I'm like, no, I know. But like, isn't that like,
It's like, I
I
wouldn't have
wasn't
said
going
it
to
if
lie
it
to you
wasn't.
about it. It's right there.
Like, people think you're trying to put one over on them. Yeah.
Yeah, like,
not a hard
hold on,
word.
let's carry the 2. Yeah.
6 letters. Oh, man.
The only other thing about the wine is the finish. The more I focus in on that, is fantastic. You get a lot more of those non-fruit notes on the finish, a little bit more of that oak influence, but also I think that licorice comes out. I get a little bit of like, and I think I got this more when I first opened it, a little bit less, but it's still a little bit in there, but a little bit of like caramelly type flavor in there.
Yeah.
And then I just picked up a little note a couple minutes ago of coffee. And it's really just on the very end, but it was a really nice way to finish the sip.
Well, since we kind of had a truncated learning segment today, we would normally do the learning segment and come back and taste it again and then give our final review. Just to create a little space right now, should we jump into our game?
Yes.
Sure.
Yes, I think we should.
I'm wine with that.
Awesome. Not the game we're playing today, but I love that you dropped that in. All right. So
I do that to my wife all the time, and she hates it. She's like, "You're not making that a thing. Stop it." I'm like, "No, I'm making it a thing."
Absolutely. It's going to work. Keep trying. Chrissy will love it. All right. So
I'm not gonna stop.
all right, so we're going to play our favorite game on the show, Pinot or Chardonnay. Joel, can you tell us about the game and take it away?
Pinot or Chardonnay. Was this our first game that we started on the show? I don't remember. It doesn't matter.
I believe so, yeah. This is the
into it,
original.
right?
This is the OG game.
This is what started it
The
all.
OGG.
If you haven't joined us for Pinot or Chardonnay, pretty darn simple. We put a little scenario out there. We say if we are Pinot, not into that, or Chardonnay, that sounds great. Pretty simple, guys. So here's the scenario I kind of want to put out there for today, okay? So Pinot or Chardonnay, you're going to pour a really good but inexpensive bottle of wine for a group of, let's say, really snooty friends who really they pride themselves on drinking, high price point, the best wines, okay? And, that's kind of like their thing. You're not going to tell them the price of this. You're going to let them drink it. You're going to have them, give their thoughts. After they give their opinions, you're going to tell them, the price point here. So it's a little bit
The old bait and switch.
A little bit of the bait and switch, but also a little bit of a challenge, maybe opening some eyes for your snooty friends here. Is this a Pinot or Chardonnay? Do we let sleeping dogs lie, or do we try to change some minds? What do you guys think?
Can I jump in and because
Please.
Pinot and Chardonnay is my favorite game you guys play. The spelling one is very hard for me.
Yeah, I hate the spelling.
Yeah,
I hate the spelling.
The best
I know.
name though. We have
best
to-
name,
It is a
easily
great
best
name.
name.
It is a
Easily.
great name.
But I
Spelling
will
is
say,
great.
Pinot and Chardonnay is a great name. But if I may suggest as the guest for today, maybe
Yeah.
it could be Chardonnay and Tannat Gunna Do It.
Oh,
Tannat
100%.
Oh, I
Gonna
love
do it.
that. To not gonna
Officially-
do it.
Well done.
Oh my god,
Well
that's
done.
genius. I'm in.
That might be the new name moving forward.
Yeah. It's like the next level. It's like the next level. It's like you gotta know some stuff.
To not gonna do it. Oh, I'm
It's
gonna use that on my
official.
wife. She's
Well
gonna
done.
hate it.
She's gonna be like, "What's
What
Tannat?
did you just say?
It's like, do
What
some
is that? That
Googling and
palindrome
let
that
me
I've
know
been
if
hearing
you're
so
mad
much about?"
I don't know what that is, but I do know it's a palindrome.
I
all
can
right,
hear it.
so
There's
yeah,
two N's in there.
yeah, totally.
Solid.
Chardonnay or
Super solid.
Tannat Gonna Do It, guys? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm a Chardonnay. Why not? Let's make them experience something new and then realize how wrong they are in their ways of their snootiness. So let's let them have it. Although I'd love to say to not gonna do it. I'm a complete Chardonnay on this, just because I like the phrase to not gonna do it.
Sure. I feel like I've screwed this up. I want to be a Chardonnay on this, and I feel like I have very excitedly brought some of our favorite $15 to like $25 bottles of wine to like group events, and I think where I've screwed up is I've kind of like, pulled back the curtain like too early and been like, oh, this is a great like $23 bottle of wine, and then people fucking immediately like turn their
Change the
brains off
tune.
or are disappointed because I'm the wine podcast guy and I brought a $23 bottle of wine.
Yeah.
And then like they're not as into it. Like I feel like I need to like put it in a bag and like do the whole blind taste, ask them to do all the stuff. And so I'm a Chardonnay with that. Otherwise, I'm like getting kind of nervous. I feel like people who have like expensive wine tastes are just like looking to be pissed if it's not one of the brands they love.
Fair.
100%.
It's a fair point. Adam, what do you think?
Yeah, I know I came up to not gonna do it, but I really am a Chardonnay on this one. I'm gonna stick with that. Maybe I can, I don't know, Zinfan-Hell Yeah or something like that. But
Oh God, I'm just gonna lose my
Oh
spot on the show.
God, what are we doing here?
We're missing so many opportunities.
Honestly,
Adam, you have passed this audition. You're in. Buddy. That's it. That's it. We don't need to see anybody else. Tell the other 199 people to go home. This is it.
yeah, good news, bad
We had a
news. You
long
have a
recording
fifth
night.
payless job. No, yeah. But yeah, I would be lying to myself if I didn't say Chardonnay because I do it.
Yeah.
You know, like I,
totally.
you know, like I totally completely agree, Aaron, in that like especially like in my fingers, if they say, hey, Adam, like, can you bring wine? Like, I'm not stupid. I know why they're asking me to bring wine.
Right.
Right.
But also, I don't want to spend a ton of money on wines that like they aren't going to necessarily appreciate differently
Sure.
than where I'd rather expose them to something that they haven't had. So like in practice, like I tend to like, I'll try to bring something that they would never come across and then hit them with the price if they ask.
Yeah, that's a fair way to do it. Yeah.
I love that. I mean, it's like what Priscilla was talking about last week when she talked about her soldier wines. It's like, I'm going to bring a good, affordable bottle of wine to sacrifice to the masses of just like, this is good wine. But I don't want to bring a, $80 bottle of wine that I'm then going to pour for a bunch of people who may not appreciate like value or even, it's I mentioned these guys, like I accidentally opened like it was my only $160 bottle of wine. I accidentally opened it. I poured my mom a glass and she was like, I don't know. As she like dropped her like ice cubes into her white Zin.
Oh yeah.
And I'm just like, that was waste of, I had a waste of my wine. So like, yeah, there's really good wines and you got to make sure you present them in a way that like people are going to appreciate them.
Yeah, that's why when I have like a wine birthday party or something like that, like 4 people are invited.
Yeah.
And they're all my wine drinkers. They're not even necessarily always my closest friends. It's like, no, because like I need an excuse to open this bottle of wine, and you're the only ones that'll appreciate it.
You're like, I actually hate this guy, but he knows his wine, so I'm gonna have him.
The thing about Derek is he's an asshole, but man, does he get Bordeaux?
By the way, I am a Zinfan-Hell Yeah on this too. By the way, I did think. Do you guys remember the old SNL? It was a Chris Farley SNL skit where, like, it was supposed to be like the Folgers Crystals commercial where everybody thinks they're drinking like drip coffee, but they're actually drinking like Folgers Crystal coffee, instant coffee. And the guy comes and is like, "Sir, what if I told you you're drinking, whatever instant coffee?" And he's like, "What did you just say to me?" And he like destroys the restaurant and goes crazy. I did think of that.
Perfect Chris Farley person to have that. Like, it's like, hey, we just need you to be you for a minute.
Exactly. Yeah. Just be pissed and take off your shirt and throw things. Yeah, I did think of that, and almost made me to not gonna do it, but Zinfan-Hell Yeah on it. I'm with you guys. Let's change some minds.
All right, that was great. I mean, so just so you know, folks, if any of us come to a party or hang out, we bring a bottle of wine, just be incredibly skeptical of the price point because we are all down to give you something that we think is great, but might not be as fancy as you would have liked us to bring. So too bad. You shouldn't ask us to bring wine.
There's more to me than wine.
Yeah. So one more time. So we have this incredible wine in front of us. Does anyone else want to just last minute, anything to pop in your head, any new thought? We always ask this question. We're very rarely are hit with any kind of epiphany in the last minute.
I'm just realizing how much of this I've consumed.
Yeah, me too.
Man. That should be its own rubric.
Not good.
Very good.
Yeah, but the only thing I'll reiterate is you really need to let this one open up. I think it needs some time to relax. It opens up right out of the bottle a little tight. So I think with some airtime, you really can appreciate all this wine brings because there's a lot of complexity here, and the air really helps bring all that forward.
For sure.
Awesome. So that being said, the tradition on our show is that the person who brought the wine is the last to give their final review. So once again, we have the Byron Blatty Tannat 2022. I would say, this might be something you want to look into, but there was only one barrel, and too bad. We have most of it. So, but I'm sure this is a wonderful representation of all the other wines that they make out in LA. Colin, would you like to jump in and give your thoughts on this wine?
Yeah, but did they like it? It's time for the review.
Sure, I am really enjoying it. When I think Tannat, again, I think way bigger, way bolder, way more intense, almost too intense. I've only had a couple of Tannats in my day. I haven't really liked any of them, but this one is really good. I think the balance structurally is what really stands out about this wine, even above the fruit notes and the other flavor notes in the wine, which are awesome. But it's just each sip is just so enjoyable. The structure really takes you on a really nice, enjoyable ride with the acid, the light tannin. So, I think when you put it all together, it's an absolute must share. I mean, I would love to show this off as a really great example of what Tannat can be, because I think that's what it is. It's an awesome bottle of Tannat, and I'd love for people to try this.
Amazing. Joel?
Yeah, Colin said he had all these expectations with Tannat, and it defied his expectations in a good way. I didn't have a whole heck of a lot. I haven't had a lot of Tannat, and I've certainly never had a Tannat from Los Angeles, so I didn't really know what to expect, and super, super impressed. I hesitate to do this, Aaron and Colin. You guys know sometimes I have my analogy of like when you're balancing music and you're finding like the right, bass, treble, and mid. I hate to do this in front of you, Adam, because you're probably like, what the hell is this guy talking about? This is my life. Shut up. But I've used that.
You better be right.
Analogy
you
before.
Better be right.
You know what? I'm just going to step back from that analogy. No. But I've used that analogy before where like you find it's just the perfect, you find that perfect balance of everything, and the sound is so good. And that's what I'm experiencing with this. Like I kind of said before, it's like nothing abrasive jumps out at you with such a big wine. It's just really pleasant the whole way through, and there's so much to kind of go in and pick out and experience. It's like with every sip and every 10 minutes that we let this thing breathe a little bit more, there's something a little bit different. It's softened in this way. Something else is peeking through. 100% total must share, and really just excited. Thank you for showing us a bit about Los Angeles wine, and excited to explore that a little bit more.
For sure.
Yeah, and sorry, let me just jump back in because I didn't even mention this, but at $60, which is usually, very much above what we usually pay for a bottle of wine, this is totally worth it. Like this absolutely nails that price point. I wouldn't at all be afraid to spend that amount of money on this bottle of wine, because I think it nails that price point absolutely.
Yeah, and to just jump on that, like for me, this is absolutely a must share. And, something Joel said a moment ago about like, a little more time goes by, a little more time. So the more I drink this, the more I'm enjoying it. The more time's going by, the more I'm enjoying it. It's really kind of nailing this great place in where I like reds, where the acidity and the tannins in the body are all just in this really nice, well-structured place where nothing is too overbearing. And again, it's a 15.1% alcohol wine that it isn't tasting like a 15.1 alcohol wine, and that's great. And then the Colin's point, like when you go out, to California, you're kind of prepared to spend, you especially visit different tasting rooms and wineries and vineyards, and spending $60 on a bottle of wine is just kind of par for the course. And this would 100% be one that, next time I take a trip out to California, I would want to go by the tasting room and pick up a bottle. While this bottle may not be available anymore, a similar one. And maybe, Adam, I'll bump into you there and ask you what the latest and greatest bottle is, but absolutely a must share. Adam, would you like to take us home on your thoughts on this bottle of wine?
Sure. Yeah. And to speak to Colin and Aaron's point about the price point, like I think it's the kind of thing where I don't mind spending $60 on a bottle of wine, but if I do, it needs to be good. It shouldn't be like if it just had a little bit more tannins or a little bit less acid, like it should, if at that price point, it should be structurally like really, really sound.
Right.
And this is that, this completely nails it.
100%.
And while I feel like it's slightly hypocritical to not pick must share, because I literally shared it on this podcast. As far as this show goes, my wine fridge is empty, so I'm putting it in the wine fridge.
Yeah,
100%.
I love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well done.
Real life,
Fantastic.
different story. but no, and yeah, anytime you guys make your way out to LA, please stop into Byron Blatty or Aja out in Santa Monica, or Angelino, which is like the second LA winery that was bonded since Prohibition, like since I think 1900 or something.
Dang.
Like there's a ton of LA wineries that are very much worth the stop in.
So cool. And if folks, listeners do want to do that, I mean, where should they go? Check it out. Do they need to make a reservation? Can they drop by? What's the situation there?
At least I can speak to Blatty, Byron Blatty and Aja over in Santa Monica. You don't need to make a reservation, and at Blatty you can't make a reservation. Like we only do walk-in. And
Hop in. Cool.
yeah, and it's a small urban tasting room, so like there's no vineyard there. It's just like it's a building, and if there's room, then you sit, and if there's not room, we make room. So it's kind of one of those things.
Nice. That's awesome.
And as far as Angelino, I don't think you need a reservation. I'm pretty sure you don't. I obviously don't work there, so I can't say for sure. But I'm 95% sure you don't need a reservation at any of these places.
Cool.
And can you buy the Blatty wines online or?
Yeah, ships
very
anywhere
cool.
except for where you like normal places you can't ship.
Can't. Yep.
Yeah.
I send it to my office in New York because New Jersey's weird.
Yeah, I was wondering if that's why you said that. Yeah, that's not great. But like, and to you guys' point, like this is, I think it was to Joel's point where like this is very representative of the work Mark and Jenny are doing at Blatty, and I picked this one because I like it, but also like I listened to the show. I knew there hadn't been a Tannat yet, so might as well bring a Tannat.
Thank you so
appreciate
much.
that so much.
Adam, thank you so much for joining us. We loved having you on. Thank you for bringing such a great wine to the show. As we said, it's a must share. If you are out in LA, stop by Byron Blatty's. It's so good. And Adam, is there anything else you want to shout out while we have you?
No, just, if, like I said, if you are in LA, remember there's so much to do in LA. Like everyone comes for different reasons. But if you love wine and you're visiting LA, try to drink locally if you can, because there's a good enough scene here where when we go to Napa, we drink Napa wine as we should. But in LA, there's a lot to do. But don't forget to look out for some of those local producers.
For sure.
Awesome.
Amazing. Adam, thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you on. Come back anytime.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Guys, that was awesome. Holy crap, that was awesome. We
That
are
was
just
awesome.
batting 1,000 with our guests.
Fantastic.
How
Unbelievable.
are we doing this?
It might just be that
Adam was so
everyone
cool.
out there in the wine world is really cool.
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
don't think that's the case. I think we're just getting lucky.
You think there's
No,
some
I don't
knuckleheads
think we're
out
getting
there that
lucky.
we're just avoiding?
There has to be, just statistically
dodging bullets.
alone. Like there has to be some shitty people out there. We have not found them though. We've only been finding the coolest, loveliest people to talk to from the wine industry, and we're yeah, like you said, we're batting 1,000 100% right now.
Absolutely. Everyone's been super cool. That was just such a great conversation. What a funny dude. He should definitely be back on the show, but when he's on the show, Joel has to stay home because we can't do too
No,
Joel level sense of humor. In
Listen,
one
I
episode.
disagree. I think the more Joel, the merrier, in my opinion. If we could duplicate Joel
you.
5 or 6 times, why not? So
Wow.
if we could get
That's a lot,
one more Joel, why not?
That's a
We're
lot of Joel.
actually, Adam and I spoke on the side. We're actually starting our own podcast. And this is going to be my last one with you guys. We're going to
dad
do one.
jokes.
It's called
Quit,
Adam and
quit
Joel
wasting your wine.
in the hole. I don't know.
Adam and Joel in the hole. I hate you. Folks, if you're still sticking with us at this point in the podcast, congratulations, you've done it. And if you want to find more ways to connect with us for some reason, Colin, how would they do that?
Oh, yeah, sure. I would check out Instagram, our website, and where else would we go? Oh, YouTube.
What's our
Stop
website?
Wasting
Is
Your
it
Wine. all of those
stopwastingyourwine.com?
things. Stopwastingyourwine.com.
Stopwastingyourwine.com.
Or you could just Google Stop
Just making
Wasting
sure
Your
it didn't
Wine,
change.
and all of the stuff I previously mentioned will pop up.
Yeah. We're the only Stop
yeah.
Wasting Wine out there.
We are. And I'd really appreciate if you went over to YouTube and just smash that subscribe button.
Smash it.
Smash. I've always wanted to say it like I've seen other YouTubers do it. So there's
How do you
that
feel
first
now that you've
pass.
done it? Was it
I feel
everything
great,
you wanted?
to be honest.
Okay,
No,
good.
it feels awesome. No, it feels good.
Good.
So yeah, check us out. Drop us a line. You could email us, stopwastingyourwine@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. And if you want to be on the show, we're having great guests. I feel like we could definitely use some more. So
Only
let
if
us
you're
know.
awesome,
Also-
though, because we've only had awesome people on the show. So if you're awesome,
Yeah, it's true.
That's true.
reach out. If you're not awesome, just keep listening.
The bar is high. Also, if you're listening to us on Spotify, Apple, whatever the heck it is,
Yeah.
go ahead and give us a little
100%.
follow, huh? Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I just want I love Joel's evolution. At the very beginning of the show, if we called on Joel to name the ways to contact the show, he would have to practice and all stuff. And now he's like jumping in and naming the ones we missed. We're like, hey, also, you didn't talk about this. Spotify, Apple, follow, like.
No, yeah, he's
Well
the
done.
best.
We're crushing
really.
it.
I didn't think we'd make it past episode 23. And here we are.
You did say
Here we
you were
go,
going to
bud.
quit
Hey,
right after that.
So I
Triple
figure
it
I
next
gotta
week.
get on the bus or get on out of here, and I'm
we go.
on the bus, baby.
You're
Let's
on the
go.
bus.
Thanks
Awesome.
for staying on the bus.
All right, y'all. Thanks. Another great episode. Huge thanks again to Adam Wolf and to Byron Blatty for sending us those wonderful wine. Actually, Jenny Blatty, I believe.
Yes, thank you, Jenny.
That's right.
Thank you, Jenny. Appreciate you very much. And to all listeners, thank you, and we'll see you again next week. Bye, y'all.
And remember, stop wasting your wine.
Bye.